So you're gonna wanna take your gravel and you're just gonna make a shoreline along the short edge of your oil tray. I would just pour gently from the bag. And kind of slope it upward. And you can see I didn't use the entire bag. Just gonna slope it upward. And your page here is gonna be about the size of your water, so kind of use that to judge about how much you should use. And you can see that's right about where the rocks start to kind of level off. And they do slope down a little bit to the water, which is good. To add your water, we are going to pour our water from the very end right here, and you need to pour very slowly. If you pour too fast, it's going to make your rocks go all over the place. So whatever you're gonna use, I'm gonna use a little pitcher here. Just pour it very slowly so you don't disturb the rocks. And you don't want to completely cover your rocks. If you end up pouring too much water, you can add in some more rocks. Like mine are getting a little moist. So I'm gonna add in a little bit more rock, just so it's not completely underwater. A little bit more gravel along the edge here. And then again, you want it just to kind of go down like a wedge shape. And then you are going to be ready to, again, hopefully have your plan already, but it's time for your oil spill at this point. So you're going to take your syringe, and remember, you are going to have to go into action as soon as you start, as soon as you put the oil in. It's time to go and get this oil out as quickly as possible. So you're going to take the lid off, and you're going to pour the syringe in right here in the center at the opposite edge of the shore. And as soon as you put it in, you need to toss this syringe to the side and get to work cleaning up the oil with whatever materials it is that you have chosen. All right, at this point you have two things to do to see how much oil is left in your river. You're going to take your little brown piece of paper here. It feels like a lunch sack. And you're going to place it along the edge here on the gravel. And you can take your popsicle stick, or you can just use your hand. And you are going to just rub this to see if you had any oil make it to your shoreline or not. So just rub this on that gravel there. And if you had any oil get there, you'll get a little splotch. And you let it dry because the water will dry, but the oil will leave spots. So we'll come back and check that after it's dried. And then you're going to take your little grid paper, you're going to flip it upside down, and you are just going to dip it on the surface of the water. Gently, just give it a little dip, and then lift. We're going to let this dry, and then you can see I clearly have some oil there. We're going to let that dry, and we'll come back to look at it. All right, so you should have already filled out the material cost because you chose what items you were going to use for your experiment. Again, I just wrote this in as an example because it's going to vary depending on which items you chose to use. I just put how many of each I bought for a total of $14 million, which would make my score a 3 for the cost. You should already have done this part yesterday. And again, it will vary depending on which items you chose. What I want to show you is how to figure out your ecosystem impact score, which is using the grid and your piece of transparency with the 3 different circles on it. So what you'll do is you are going to, and if you notice this is a 4x3 array just like you have on your sheet here. I had to shrink this down a little bit because you'll have a smaller tray than we normally use. So you're going to look at each individual grid and see how much oil is left in there. And you can see I don't exactly have a circle shape here. Mine's kind of long and skinny, but that would fill up about that 3-point circle if it was all connected in a circular pattern, but it's long and skinny. So I'm gonna give this score a 3. I'm gonna come over here and in the corresponding box, I'm gonna write a 3 because I'm saying there's a lot of oil in that one. It's gonna get 3 points. Then you're going to go through and do that for every grid. Some of them will have multiple spots, and like you can see here, I have a couple of small spots and then a big long splotch, a big splotch here. Some of these have multiples. You're only going to look at the biggest splotch for each section of your grid. This one, I'm going to call that a 3. This one did pretty good. I'm going to give that a 1. Got another big splotch here. Give that a 3. Ton of oil in this corner. I did not clean up that section very well, so I'd give that a 3. This one looks pretty good. It's got a little bit around. Again, you're just looking for like the big splotches. There's going to be a bunch of teeny tiny particles, but you're just looking for the really like splotchy sections. So I would consider that right there my splotch. So I'm going to give this a 1. Here I have a long section. It's definitely bigger than a 2, so I'd give this section a 3. That's my biggest section here. I'm going to call that a 2. Tons of oil here. That's definitely going to be a 3. That's bigger than a 2, so I'm going to give this section a 3 as well. That's definitely going to be a 3. And that one, I'd say a 3 as well. And if you're saying, Miss Corley, you did a really bad job with this, I actually did a really good job, and there was not very much on the sheet, so I went in and added some oil because it was like nothing on there. Okay, so then you are going to total up all of your squares to get your score for your ecosystem impact score. All right, so I totaled up all of my squares, and that gave me a score of 31 for my ecosystem impact score. Now what's left to do is do your shore score. So you had your little brown piece of paper that you placed on the shore to see if there was any oil. I didn't have any oil, go me. So I made another demonstration. Here's one where you can tell they have dried, so the water part dries and you can't see where it was, but this one clearly had a ton of oil on it. So if you had oil, it's either a yes or no, is there oil, even if it's just a little bit. This one did not have any oil, this one did. So I'll pretend I did this one again. Again, I added some oil. So yes, there was oil on the shore. So my score shore would be 5 points, and then you will add them all up to get your total score. So if this were my real experiment, I would have got a score of 39.